What would you say if your son or your daughter came to you and said that they were gay? How would you handle that as a biblical Christian? Would you acquiesce, which is what a lot of people do, and they just start to let their heart bleed without using their head? But how do we have a heart and mind response? What are you going to do when you have one of your kids or your grandchildren come to you and say they want to do a sex change? What are you going to do to those that you know that that's happening to right now? How would you handle the kind of questions that come your way? Can you open this book and in a winsome, loving, kind, and even joyful way know where the passages are that support a biblical, historical Christian viewpoint on homosexuality and heterosexuality? Now you realize homosexuality is not in the Bible. Heterosexuality is not in the Bible. Those are sociological, psychological terms that we've in the West have created over the last 150 years. But holy sexuality is all over the Bible. How to be wholly sexual, both as a married man, a single man, and one who struggles with same-sex attraction. So we have a conference coming up called Holy Sexuality. And here's what I love. I love equipping the saints. I love empowering people to change the world. It gets me up in the morning. I enjoy it when I'm hunting and fishing. I've usually got someone with me that hasn't fished or hasn't hunted before. And so it's just the natural bent in my heart is to help someone experience something new and exciting in their life. I'm going to challenge you that there's no conference like this that's ever happened in Colorado Springs. October 6th and 7th. And if you can't answer questions, if you want to get equipped, I'm telling you this is the best conference you could come to, and it's going to be a ton of fun. So Dr. Christopher Ewan is the book. I read Dr. Christopher Ewan stuff after reading about 8 other books that range from the left to the right. And when I'm writing a book right now called Fearful Courage, 9 habits that can enable. So how does the second line go? 9 habits that will empower you to master fear and build courage in your life. So this is an example of that. I want to challenge you to be a part of this. I want to challenge your wife to come. I want to challenge you guys to bring people from your church. But I just sent out a text to a bunch of pastors yesterday, and every one of them have heard of Christopher Ewan, and they were so excited about the coming conference. But guys, this is a major issue. So we can talk to the cows come home about the school system. And I'm not sure we can change what's happening in the school system that much. But you're going to be faced with it personally. Here's my experience. My experience is that I'm overly defensive on things I don't know much about. And that I'm confident on things that I do know. That's why I went to seminary. I went to seminary because I wanted to hear all the different perspectives on a whole bunch of stuff. That's where I chose Fuller Theological Seminary, which wasn't as conservative as Trinity or as conservative as Dallas, even though I was conservative biblically. I knew what I believed. I wanted to experience the gamut of different viewpoints, which I knew Fuller would be more eclectic that way. But what most people do when they don't know something is they become overly angry, overly defensive, because they don't know what the answer is. And I can tell you at the road, and I can tell you wholehearted men, my job for as long as I'm doing this is to build confident men. And confident men don't get defensive. See, there's a difference between being defensive and being able to defend. So you can defend a viewpoint with a smile on your face because you know what they're going to say because you've already studied it. And so what I did is I read about 8 or 9 books. I think I'm up to 9 books on the issue of gay Christianity and homosexuality. Studied them all. Gave them to my son. Don't know if he read them. We love him. We unconditionally love him. He's always going to be a Holt. He's in the family. We care about him. And that's not going to change. But what was so good about this situation was it challenged me as a parent and as a pastor to become more aware of what's going to become a huge cornerstone issue in a lot of your lives. And I can promise you this, because I know what's happening in our city. There's no conference like this you're going to have. Because most pastors won't take a stand. Most pastors are, to use a theological term, wishy-washy. And it's because they're afraid, they're full of fear, and they're full of anxiety about it. They don't know what to say because they haven't studied it. They don't understand it. They don't understand what the Old Testament and the New Testament says. And this is a big part, they don't know how to communicate it in a loving way, so they're afraid they're going to be seen as homophobic and stuff. Which to me is so sad, because if anybody should be able to communicate biblically and historical Christianity on any particular issue, it should be the guy in the pulpit. How are the people in the pew going to be able to do it if the guy in the pulpit can't do it? So guys, I challenge you to come. And it's a Friday night, it's a Saturday morning. And you'll come away so confident with who you are and understanding the issues that when these things come your way, you're going to know what to do. You're going to know what to say from a biblical, historical, Christian perspective. Because Dr. Ewan's going to cover the different spectrums of the different viewpoints related to this particular issue. And here's what's cool is that your kids are going into schools. Your kids are going to colleges. Your grandchildren are going to colleges in some cases. And you've got the data. And it would be, and this is what we've done in our part of our family, this is what we've done, is I've explained the different viewpoints to the other kids in our family so that I'm kind of giving them mini seminars of what I'm doing is the books that I read. So you can do that. And that's really your calling. I think one of the great things about being a leader of your home, spiritual leader of your home, is that you become a better communicator than your pastor is. Because you know your family. So isn't it cool when you as a man can say, hey, let's go to this thing, or if they don't go, to explain those different perspectives when they come. I guarantee you they're coming up. There is stuff coming your way that's going to blow your mind. The ability of some of these theologians to mix Scripture up and confuse the issues is amazing. It's really amazing. We see it politically. Have you noticed that? I mean, the political spectrum is the same way. This is very similar to that in that they take words like democracy and redefine it. They take words like capitalism and they redefine it. And they make you feel bad that you don't agree with them because they're so winsome in how they communicate. We, as evangelical, Spirit-filled Christians, should be way better communicators than them. So I want to challenge you to do that and come to this. And if you don't, I won't talk to you for a year. No, I'm serious, man. You should be leading out on this kind of stuff. Holy sexuality. This is not just on the issue. This guy was gay. Dr. Christopher Ewan he was in his last semester of dental school, dealing drugs out of his apartment in Atlanta, when the feds caught up with him and put him in prison. He was gay. A gay guy. Didn't want to have anything to do with Christianity. And I'll just give you a quick thumbnail sketch. He's in prison, and he's walking in the quadrangle of the prison, basically saying to himself, I'm a piece of trash. I've ruined my life. My dad was a dentist. I was just about to become a dentist, about to graduate. Look what I've done to my life. And there was a pile of trash in the corner of the quadrangle, and there was something green on top of the trash. And he walked over, and he picked it up, and it was a Gideon New Testament. And his mom had become a Christian. She'd been praying for him. And the next week, he read the entire New Testament. Gave his heart to Christ. He went to the chaplain, said, look, I've become a Christian, and I'm gay. What about this? Oh, it's no problem. You can be a gay Christian. So he gave him a book on being a gay Christian. I know the book he gave him. He read it, half of it, and he went, nah, I'm not going with that. I think the Bible's better. Can you imagine a prisoner saying that to the chaplain? Got out in 3 years, became a PhD, been a professor at Moody Bible Institute for 12 years. Now he's a traveling speaker. Transformed life. Guys, I want to challenge you to be a part of that. All right, everybody go like this, if you understood what I said. Now raise your hand if you're coming. Raise your hand if you're coming. Stand up if you raised your hand. Now these are the men of God. These are the guys, these are my boys. All right, great. The rest of you guys are losers, man. You're just losers. Okay. Hey, I want to just thank you so much, you guys. By the way, if you're a loser, you can become a winner. It's really easy. Just come. I'll be looking around to see who's there. Every winner was a loser. So if you're a loser right now, it's okay. You can become a winner. It's all in your heart, what you want to do with your life, you know. Hey, I want to say something about the fact that so many of you, I was telling Ricky, Bobby, some of the guys there in the kitchen that I don't get a lot of encouragement for messages I give. Very few people say that was a good message or anything like that. I mean, maybe one or two. That's it. I don't need that, so don't feel any pressure. I'm not saying that to say that. But I will say this, that the last two messages on working out your problems, I can't remember, at least in a year, so much encouragement from so many of you that are either now working out on a regular basis or you had already started doing that, and some of you brought me photos of the transformation in your body because you're working out. So way to go, guys. I'm excited for you. That's the way to go. So keep working out. I worked out, got up this morning and worked out. In my house there, I have a little gym in this room, and it's really fun. So, just like was said earlier, a man who has his health has 1,000 wishes, and a man who doesn't have his health has one. And so, work out. It's important. Work out on Friday, October the 6th, and then you're oxygenating your brain by working out, and then come to the Holy Sexuality Conference. And then wake up on Saturday morning on the 7th, work out, oxygenate your brain, and then come to the rest of it. It's awesome. Okay, I want to do a new series, and I'm going to call it The Good Man. That's the series for the next few weeks, The Good Man. 5 qualities of true manhood. And this is just going to be an introduction today. Some of the thoughts that for this message today comes from this book, if you're interested. It's called The Toxic War on Masculinity: How Christianity Reconciles the Sexes by Nancy Pearcey. And Nancy Pearcey was a co-writer of a lot of books with Chuck Colson, if you're old enough to remember who Chuck Colson was, from Watergate. Turn in your Bibles, though, to 1 Corinthians 16. 1 Corinthians 16. You guys that are new here at the First Timers table, we always bring our Bibles, and we have about a 15-minute teaching that we do. So 1 Corinthians 16, 13. 1 Corinthians 16, 13. Interesting verse. I'm reading out of the New King James Version. The New King James Version says this: Watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong. Now, if you have a New American Standard, or if you have a King James Version, or some of the other versions, more modern, would say, watch, stand fast in the faith, act like men, be strong. How many Bibles have act like men? Okay, yeah. So it says act like men. So that's what I'm going to be talking about over the next few weeks, is acting like a man. And I'm calling it The Good Man, and you'll understand why I've chosen that title in a moment. Many of you may recall that last week was the 22-year anniversary of 9/11. Almost 3,000 people were killed by men. 2 types of men were involved in 9/11. There were 2 kinds of men. From the planning stages to ruthless action, there was one type of man who only understood power over weakness, lies over truth, and a form of masculinity built on intimidation and fear. And those were the men who flew the planes and killed almost 3,000 people. But there was another type of man at 9/11, and these were the young men and fathers of the New York Fire Department who slapped on 20-pound rubber coats, picked up 30-pound hose, carried an axe, and ran 40 flights up a set of stairs to save lives. Peggy Noonan wrote of these men, her tribute after 9/11 defined a masculine man not as being a big guy with muscles, but rather as a guy who sees trouble and takes responsibility and saves people who are smaller and more frightened in this world. See, that's why I think something like the Holy Sexuality Conference is important, because that's what you're doing. You're going to get knowledge and wisdom that's going to take frightened people and calm them down and say, God's got this. The Bible has something to say about this. You can be winsome. You don't have to be frightened. You don't have to be fearful. Two kinds of men on 9/11. One using his masculine strength to take lives through fear, and the other using his masculine strength to save lives through courage. Anthropologist Margaret Mead has said, the central problem of every society is to define appropriate roles for the men. Tony Evans has said, if the saga of a nation is the saga of its families written large, then the saga of a family is the saga of its men written large. Good men versus real men. Society holds two competing scripts for what it means to be a man. Sociologist Michael Kimmel highlights the contrast with an insightful experiment that he did, documented in this book, The Toxic War on Masculinity by Nancy Pearcey. Sociologist Michael Kimmel started by asking cadets at West Point what it means to be a good man. And the response was honor, duty, might write these down, honor, duty, integrity, sacrifice, doing the right thing, standing up for the little guy, be a provider, be a protector. And then she asked, where did you get this idea of a good man? And they said, it's everywhere. It's in our culture. It's the Judeo-Christian heritage. It's the air we breathe. Men seem to innately be aware that God has coded the software of being a man with such good traits. Well, then Kimmel asked the same cadets, what does it mean to be a real man? And the cadets answered with, the real man is tough, strong, never show weakness, win at all cost, suck it up, play through pain, be competitive, get rich, get laid. I hope he meant his wife. Everybody at the table, of whoever the guy was who said that, you guys ask him if that's what he meant by that. Kimmel has asked these two questions to boys and young men all over the globe and received virtually the same answer. It's not that the real man description is all bad. Some of those traits are necessary and they're God-given. Those men who ran into the flames of the World Trade Center were tough and they were strong. In a crisis, we need men that exhibit traits of courage. But what we need more of today, modeled so beautifully and tragically on 9/11, is a biblical, moral vision of the good man. You see, I grew up with a grandfather who was a rancher, farmer, sawmill owner, businessman, very, very successful, who on many occasions, as we were sitting in the kitchen eating, and I would ask a question about a particular person that I had met in the small town of Leesville, South Carolina, Granddaddy's response would be silence or he's a good man. Never forgot that as a kid, hearing he's a good man. And I grew up realizing that a good man was the kind of man that I wanted to aspire to be. And for those men that were not good men, silence. Granddaddy Joe wouldn't say anything about them. He would usually say, pass the beans. For the good man to flourish in our society, we must esteem, empower, and encourage our boys and our young men to do what is innately in their heart to do, placed there by God to become men of sacrifice and integrity and duty. As fathers and leaders, it is our responsibility to facilitate our boys and young men to follow their God-imaged, masculine heart, to be uncompromising in doing what they instinctively know is the right thing to do, to be courageous in defending the weak, and to defend the powerless. In the war against boys, feminist philosopher Christian Hoff Sommers writes, history teaches us that masculinity without morality is lethal. But masculinity constrained by morality is powerful and constructive and a gift to women. On 9/11, we saw two kinds of men emerge. One toxic, the other tonic. One abusive, the other benevolent. One full of fear, the other full of courage. May the good men, created in the image of God, prevail. So for the next few weeks, we'll be looking at the 5 qualities of a good man. So God bless you guys. There's a few questions for your table. Thanks for being here.